It was a performance that felt all too familiar, and it leaves the Padres on the brink of elimination. A 3-1 loss to the Chicago Cubs. Discouraging performance in their postseason opener, and now season on the line Wednesday and hopefully Thursday as well. Here to discuss game one of the Wild Card Series against the Cubs. He's Todd Strain. I'm Darnay Tripp. That was a tough watch. The second half of that, it felt there was some life early on, but the second half of that was a drag.
It was a drag, and unfortunately, it's something we've kind of seen from this Padre team this year, where it's just a lackadaisical effort in a game, and especially late in a game. We've seen so many lackadaisical efforts, or seemingly lackadaisical. I mean, the guys are trying, but there's just no oomph in those late innings when they get behind. Yeah, season on the brink, a la the Bobby Knight book tomorrow for the Padres.
Yeah, I mean, like again, it's it's in there. They've got it, and especially when Tatis comes to play, you got Machado, all these guys coming up. Just takes one swing to get back into it, and they did not have that swing, and they're gonna need to find it before tomorrow. Thanks to OG, the sponsor of the On Friar podcast. Appreciate all they do for On Friar and the NBC7 sports team. If you're looking for a nice long lunch break Wednesday and hopefully Thursday, OG's is a great place to spend it. Tons of TVs, great menu, awesome beer list. They're always doing specials and updating their menu as well. So there's always something new at OG's. So be sure to hit them up if you're looking for a place to have a good meal, catch a game, whether it's the Padres during the postseason, NFL, college football, whatever your sport of choice. OG is a great place to hang out, get a good meal, catch some games, have a drink, and enjoy yourself. So appreciate all they do for us. Without further ado, the walk-up music. It is the On Friar Podcast, brought to you by NBC7. He is Todd Strain. I am Darnay Tripp. Padres down 1-0 to the Cubs in their National League Wild Card Series after a 3-1 loss in Chicago, in which Nick Pivetta was sharp out of the gates. Looked really, really good, pumping that four-seamer high in the zone. Got a lot of goofy-looking swings from Cubs hitters. Some early offense, little double action, Jackson Merrill and Xander Bogaerts. And you think, okay, might have something cooking here. Maybe that resurgent lineup we saw late in the regular season, some early offense. Maybe that is a trend that will continue. Unfortunately, that stalled out. And we saw some other trends, Todd, that we have observed and we have bemoaned for much of the year. And they presented themselves again today. You got a kind of a big picture takeaway or one thing that's been rattling around your head or you found particularly frustrating or puzzling about today's performance?
No, really, big takeaway was just really like a tale of two games. First 4.5 innings, Nick Pivetta is and the Padres offense is getting hits. They're putting the ball in play. Pavetta's dominating. He's putting the ball exactly where he wants in the zone. He's striking out Cub hitters. Padres seemingly in control and about ready to turn this over to their bullpen with a lead, which is, as we know in San Diego, is a recipe for success. And then the Padres they don't capitalize on some opportunities to add on early. Well, I'm sure we'll get into that. But then Pivetta mislocates 2 pitches, and all of a sudden you're in a 2-1 hole, and the Cubs played clean from then on out, and the Padres didn't have any answer. It's like they landed one big punch early, the Padres. Cubs counterpunched a couple of times, and then San Diego just went limp. They had nothing there, and the game flipped because I think if you talk to most Padre fans in San Diego, in the middle of the game, you're like, this is great. We are playing. This is right where we want to be, and it just flipped, and the Padres did not answer at all, and the Cubs in control in a short series, up 1-0 for sure.
You have a team that had power and slug all season long. another team that struggled to generate power and slug all season long. And it's felt so much throughout the year. Like the Padres have to do so many little things in order to generate a run.
Yeah.
And, so often throughout the year, you've seen a team just with one big swing change the tenor of the game. And that was the case today in, what was it, that fifth inning,
Fifth inning.
uh, where, Seiya Suzuki and Carson Kelly tee off on Nick Pivetta. And the Padres, like, again, we've seen it. We, especially of late, there's been multi-home run games, early home runs, back to back, doing all that. It just has not been a consistent aspect of this team and of their performance. And that's the scary part when you face a team that has that potential. And they showed it today. And I think Cubs had 3 at bats today with runners in scoring position. That's it.
That's it.
And again, Pivetta pitching the way that he pitched, the bullpen looking, like it did. Jeremiah Estrada gives up a run. But you feel pretty good about your chances. But again, you have one team that needs an infield single, a bunt, a walk, a sac fly in order to score or do anything. They did get, a couple doubles, but against a team that can, again, change the feel of the game, especially doing so at home with one, then another big swing. And you go from feeling like, okay, we're right there. We're kind of in control, so to speak, at least early on, to then having to play catch up. And, the Padres haven't done that, consistently well through the course of the season. And, we talked yesterday about, playoff type baseball, and I'm sure we'll get into the bunt. And that's part of it. We saw it, Zach McKinstry for the Tigers, the go-ahead run, I think in the 7th inning, the little squeeze bunt there to get the go-ahead and what ended up being the winning run across. But, it's also about the big swing, right? And the game-changing moments. And the Cubs had it, and the Padres did not.
And it wasn't like the Padres didn't hit balls hard. They hit multiple balls with exit velocities, over 100 miles per hour, especially later in the game. But they just weren't hitting those balls elevated enough to get out at Wrigley or hitting them where they found spots. So they were on Chicago pitching for a lot of their at-bats. They weren't having terrible at-bats. You can't look at them and say, oh, that was a bad at-bat here, a bad at-bat here. They were getting good wood on it. But as you say, it's been a common thing all season long. The opposing team continues to outslug the Padres. They continue to outslug them at key moments. And this Padre team has not been able to deliver slug or when you need some pop late in innings, and that reared its head again today.
It certainly did. There was a tweet I retweeted from I might be saying his last name incorrectly, so my apologies, Clark. But Clark Farentold. Sorry, Clark.
Farentold.
Bad job by me. But he's a great follow on Twitter, and he's always passing along great information. And he had one that caught my eye. Padres power / slugging numbers this season in the 6th inning or later. 59 homers, 29th in Major League Baseball, 131 ISO, which just kind of gives you a sense of overall power. 27th in Major League Baseball, 366 slug percentage, tied 26 in Major League Baseball. He adds attempting to score late inning runs with mainly singles, walks, small ball, especially in the postseason, is wildly impractical. And that's often what we see the Padres attempting to do, kind of this grit squad style of play. And, as Mike Schild has said, they're not anti-homer, so that's good to hear. But the power just hasn't shown up as often as they have needed to. And that's, again, that was the difference here today.
We're kind of dancing around it. We're talking. We're alluding to the. Oh, go ahead.
There was one thing I was going to say, because you were talking about the weather, and I don't want to spend too much time on this, but it is, it was tricky, especially, some of the replays in those kind of early middle innings where pitchers in full sun, and then about halfway between the mound and home plate, you got the shadow coming in. Now, Cubs are obviously dealing with this as well. They're more accustomed to it. Maybe some experience helps from that standpoint. But you made a good point. Like Gavin Sheets talked about it, like he felt like he got into one. And for Suzuki and especially the Carson Kelly homer that hung up there forever, and you're thinking, okay, is Jackson Merrill going to have a chance to bring this in? He did not. Padres got a hold of a few, and maybe it was the direction of the wind or the strength of the wind in that particular moment. It favored the Cubs as opposed to the Padres, who did make some hard contact, just not hard enough.
You know what type of batted ball is not impacted by wind?
What's that?
A bunt. A bunt. We've been dancing around it, Darnay. You're talking about
Let's get
slug.
to it.
You're talking about some playing small ball, that kind of stuff. We talked about some missed opportunities. Fourth inning. I mean, it didn't cost the Padres the game, but this is a huge talking point, and rightfully so. Fourth inning, Manny Machado, leadoff walk. You're up 1-0. Jackson Merrill on his own accord. Schilt did not call for the bunt. He made that clear in postgame. Jackson Merrill sacrifices your cleanup hitter in the postseason, who is swinging a hot bat with his new goatee, as we all like to point out, is giving himself up, giving up a valuable out to move Manny Machado over, where you're still going to need a hit to get him home. This isn't like a second to third situation where you just put the ball in play and he trots home. You're going to need hits, multiple hits, or multiple good things to happen after you advance them to second base to score. So you are sacrificing an out with your cleanup hitter. That is a tough pill to swallow. That's contrary to everything against baseball analytics and how the game is played today. Anybody who's listening to this podcast know the Padres have played that way this season, and it's been hotly debated. And it's still up for debate. It might have worked out today, but it didn't work out in this case because the Padres didn't bring him home, and they just gave away an out from your cleanup hitter. That's a hard one to fathom. And it's not so much also just the sacrifice in that. It's the mindset, I guess, a little bit that your cleanup hitter, you're one of your big guys, Jackson Merrill, is in that moment with a chance to expand the lead and really, do some damage in that game. And his mindset, rather than I'm going to take this ball and I'm going to drive it somewhere, I'm going to work this at bat, I'm going to move, take some pitches, move the line, as they like to say. His mindset was, no, I'm not going to do those things. I'm going to give myself up and move the guy 90 feet in the middle of a game. It wasn't a key situation. You're still maybe 1 or 2 innings at least away from the bullpen. There's just so much interesting to me, not only about that mindset, but that style of play. And that wasn't where the game was won or lost, but it is the talking point because not a lot of people feel like the Padres feel that was the right play.
Funny, I know Merrill said it, and it kind of became like a rallying cry early in the season. The Padres don't feel pressure, they apply pressure. And in that situation, are you applying pressure? Now, granted, you have a runner in scoring position, so maybe, I guess, but I would think.
Hey, Darnay, let me jump in there. There's no way. You ask major league pitchers, would you rather have a runner or would you rather have a runner at first and the cleanup hitter at bat? I bet you 80% of major league pitchers would rather say, hey, gladly, I'll take the out. You give yourself up, cleanup hitter, and you move that runner over because you're minimizing your odds for a big inning. And I think, just to jump in there real quick, I find it hard to believe that most major league pitchers would not take that sacrifice bunt and say, fine, have it.
Yeah. I completely agree. And, Merrill defended his decision, trying to move the guy along, play unselfish baseball, yada, yada, yada. And good on him for having the willingness to do that. He also doubled his first at bat.
Yeah.
He's also been swinging it well since the goatee. He had a really nice finish to the regular season. And again, like you said, in that situation where, it's not tied up in the 8th inning, it's, not a situation where there's a guy on third and it's kind of a logical spot to do it. Like, a lot still has to go right once you get Manny there to second. And it did feel like you're just kind of letting the pitcher, in that case Matthew Boyd, off the hook, and willingly, taking some of the steam out of what could be a really productive inning, especially when you got the middle of the order coming up. It is a baffling decision. And it was funny, like, maybe this is just the way it came out, and I'm sure it wasn't intended to come out this way, but when Mike Short was asked about in the post game, he very quickly said, and I might be misquoting here, but Jackson was on his own with that.
Yeah.
And
100,
it
100% he said that. Yeah.
almost felt like Shilton never throws his guys under the bus. Like, ever comes close to saying anything negative. And I don't know if that was his intent, probably not. But in that moment, it almost felt like he was like, "No, that's a Jackson thing. Like, I didn't call for that." And Merrill said as much after the game, that it was his decision. And it feels like, and I think this is something we've discussed as well, it might not be Mike Schultz's decision, but is it a result of Mike Schultz, like, indoctrination of a young, impressionable baseball player who came up under Mike Schultz, at least in terms of the big leagues? Jackson's a really confident, smart, savvy baseball player, but I would still, to some degree, think a lump of clay that can be molded and influenced. And this is the way Mike Schultz likes his team to go about his business. They have the green light to bunt, regardless of the situation. And it's not just the green light. I think they've been encouraged to do so in various situations when they feel like that is advantageous. And while Mike Schultz did not call for it in this case, I find it hard to believe that his influence and the instruction that Jackson Merrill has gotten early on in his big league career did not heavily influence his decision to take the conservative path there in that spot.
100%. You are 100% on point with that one. There is no way, with how Schilt has managed and what Merrill has been exposed to, that did not influence his decision to do that. And you could see how Jackson Merrill could come up to the plate in that particular moment and says, "Hey, this is what we do. This has worked before. I'm going to move him over. One of these other guys is going to knock him in. And we have a 2-0 lead with our ace and our bullpen. And we are going to win this game. 2-0, 3-1, 2-1, something like that." You can see how he gets there. Now, as we talked about, whether that's the right call or how that's up for debate, and we can go around and around on that. What's also one other point about the bunt is it's not like you had Machado and Tatis following him. You had worse hitters coming up than Jackson Merrill. You had not as strong hitters coming behind you. So it's one thing to sacrifice when you got the meat of your lineup coming up, but to sacrifice with hitters coming up behind you that are not nearly as good as you is a confounding one for sure.
It is.
It is. But I want to make it clear that is not where the game was won or lost, but that is clearly the most interesting talking point, because whether Pivetta missed his pitch on the say a Suzuki homer or whatever, I mean, you can debate that, and that happens. Even if you're throwing a great thing and they wanted it high and it was low, those things happen. The bunt is something that is a conscious decision and a mindset.
I think, again, it's one of those situations where if he had done the reverse and it still went poorly, none of us are saying, well, why didn't he bunt there?
Exactly.
If he grounds out, even if he grounds into a double play, it's a bummer, but nobody's like, well, why didn't he bunt? I don't think we're thinking that, because, again, the place in the game, he doubled his first hit, his first at bat. He's been swinging the bat really, really well. Like, you would want him to have the green light to be aggressive and to be the dynamic, like, extra base type of, and then get on a base pass, run like a hair's on fire type of guy that Jackson Merrill is, rather than saying, all right, here we go, take the out. You won't get me on the base pass trying to make things happen. You get a guy on second base, but like you said, you don't have the top of the order. You don't have Machado and Tatis coming up. It's just, it's puzzling. It's discouraging. But again, it's what this team does. Yeah. Sack bunts as much as anybody, looking for productive outs. And I guess that was a productive out, but it wasn't a productive inning. And you're right. Maybe it didn't lose them the game, but we don't know what that inning could have become. If it becomes one run, granted, they manufactured a run, later on in the game, but you just don't know, like, in these types of games, like, what event can just change the tenor of the game enough that it impacts the outcome. And maybe the eighth is handled a little bit differently if it's a tie game, or if they score 2 runs in that inning, which is certainly feasible with, Bogarts, O'Hearn, Sheets, those guys coming up. Like, O'Hearn should have had 2 hits. Sheets could have had a homer. So we were robbed of that possibility, Todd,
Yeah.
in part by that conservative approach. That, is that on Jackson, or is that on kind of leadership saying, hey, we support this brand of baseball. We encourage this brand of baseball.
Yeah, and in the postseason, those 27 outs are so invaluable, and you have to protect them so much. To give one away at what was not really a critical juncture and was skewing earlier in the game is tough. Yeah, and Jackson, as you talked about, he is one. They just put a mural madness in downtown, and it was because of his fire, because of how when he gets a big hit, his emotion.
He wasn't doing this in the mural.
No, he was not bunting in the mural. Geez, yes, you're exactly right. His fire, his passion, how he played, and how he reacts in the big moments when he makes a special play, his emotion. That as we saw with Tatis and Merrill, that emotion helps fuel this team, and you're just removing that aspect from it when you do something like that. Yeah, there were bright spots. There were bright spots today, but that was not it.
I'm looking something up out of curiosity. In 2022, in that infamous 5-run inning, there were no bunts. Walk single, infield single, Kim double, Soto single, strikeout, foul out, single. 5 runs, no bunts. Well, that's only one inning. Look, there's one case, but
hey, you want to know? You want to know what's funny? I took a picture of some things that interested me from this game, and I missed it. I took a picture of Clark Farenthal's same tweet earlier that you mentioned. I did. I'm just going back to it.
Great minds. Let's get to some of the comments from Oz. Tonight's emotions, bummed. Yes. You and plenty of others. From Smokey, if you want my honest feelings, Swanson made some elite plays. Yeah, we should talk about Dansby Swanson. Yeah. It is what it is, and I want Machado to actually do something. We need our leader to set the tone in game 2. The Dansby Swanson ground ball there in that second inning, I think that was for the first out after Bogart's RBI double. Yes, great play. Really, really impressive play. Yeah. Bogart's there on third. He scores, obviously. Even if that were deeper in the infield, you might have a chance to score there. So hats off to Swanson. But that over-the-shoulder kind of almost basket type of catch on O'Hearn, where you feel like, okay, they've got an opportunity there. That was the one that, we're going to be replaying in our minds for a long time. Both of those off Ryan O'Hearn as well. So a frustrating day for him. And those were game-changing, run-saving plays. And so it wasn't all just kind of bad at-bats or faulty approach. Cubs and Swanson in particular had something to do with it as well.
Yeah, and when Dansby Swanson was with the Braves, a lot of people said, "Oh, why are you leaving the Braves, who were one of the best teams in baseball and always in the postseason at the time? Why are you going to the Cubs?" And the Cubs wanted Dansby for when they got to this moment. They were building something, they thought, and they wanted his veteran leadership and his postseason experience. And that postseason experience showed off in a big way today with 2 key plays that really hurt the Padres and cost some 1-2 runs, maybe some big innings, and you could say won them the game. So that signing by the Cubs, where people maybe at the time were saying, well, what are you doing, or why is he going there? It paid off today in a big way.
Yeah. JDS third. We've seen this movie all season long. If we were honest, we could see this coming from miles away. I don't think anybody's shocked necessarily. Seth, pity that the team couldn't continue how hot they were against the D-backs. I mean, this game is a nutshell. In a nutshell, is a major reason why Pods fans weren't optimistic, and tomorrow is another big reason why. offense has been inconsistent all season. D-backs had nothing to play for. And that, that was another part of it too, because we did see them play really well against the Rockies, lose a series to the Reds, lose a series to the Mets. And so, there were these signs of hope, encouraging series. But then when they were heads up against a motivated playoff type team, especially on the road, it just didn't. There was no carryover.
Yeah, and I still think, as much as we're bemoaning it and down on today's result, I still think the Padres have a shot in this series. It's not over. I know the odds historically are stacked against them and that kind of stuff, but they got minimal production from a lot of guys today, and I still believe that that's in there somewhere. I mean, people might call me a fool because as all the comments in the chat, and we've talked about, this has kind of been what this team is all season long. But I also believe at the same time that maybe this team can rise up and meet the moment. And as much as we say Dylan Cease is not been a great pitcher, Cubs might be going with possibly a bullpen game tomorrow. We still don't know who's coming in after their start. Their reliever who's going to start.
It sounds like Kittredge and then Imanaga. So
Yeah.
it sounds like a piggyback situation. Opener, you got Kittredge, the righty, who baffling at bat for Fernando Tatis Jr. against Kittredge, gets him down 2-0, got a borderline call, then gets one in the zone kind of up and away, and then Tatis strikes out looking, 5 pitches, not a single swing. And I would bet you could count on one hand, maybe one finger in Fernando Tatis Jr.'s big league career, how many times he faced 5 competitive pitches and did not swing once. And again, like, where's the aggression, and maybe it was just, that's how that bat played out, took a couple inside, got a call against him on a borderline pitch. And he was also throwing some nasty stuff too. So, but again, it's like, who's going to jump on these guys? Who's going to show? Again, they did it with the Merrill and Bogarts doubles, but you're waiting for the Machados and Tatises to have that big swing, to take a big hack that at least makes, the guy in the mound a little bit uncomfortable, maybe a little bit too fine. And they never applied that type of pressure.
Yeah, that Tatis at bat, he could talk about his approach and what he was thinking that at bat, but it's still inexcusable, as you mentioned, not to swing. That called third strike was a strike. It was in the zone. You got to swing at bat. And when you have the Merrill bunt, Machado's so not really a competitive day either, and Tatis's at bat, like, those are small things, but they stack up, as we keep talking about in the postseason. Right there, we just mentioned like 6-7 at bats that were non-competitive and not real threatening and didn't have much juice. And so when you give that many at bats away in the postseason, now we know they're facing major league hitters, or major league pitchers, but that's still hard to overcome for sure. And mystifying from a guy like Tatis when he's so explosive and the bat never gets off his shoulder there.
Yeah, so Kittredge to start against the righties, and then Imanaga. And so it'll be really interesting because the Padres had 3 straight lefties towards the bottom of the order against a lefty. And so I'm sure Craig Counsell's banking on seeing that again. And then they'll see what Imanaga can do against the lineup that has struggled against left-handed hitters. And I am really, we would be stunned if Mike Schilt made a major change to the lineup at this point, right? We've been 100%. Talking about this for months and thought maybe it happens towards the end of the regular season. Remember Jackson Merrill and Fernando Tatis Jr.? I forget who they were playing, a Sunday game, and they both raked that game. Arise was out. He sat that day, I think, against a lefty. And you're like, or maybe he might have been hurt or something like that. And you're like, okay, perfect opportunity to make a switch. Even in the last week, Arise is down. O'Hearn has a multi-hit game, hitting from the left side in the 2-hole behind Fernando Tatis Jr. You're like, okay, maybe it's finally going to happen, and it does not. And now going into an elimination game, I would be stunned to see Mike Schilt make a major change to the lineup, potentially dropping Luis Arise down. But even if Arise, now they'd be facing a righty to start things out, But even if Arise is there, like if you drop Bogarts down one spot and you move O'Hearn up, if you move Freddie Fermin up one spot, maybe have Jake Cronenworth hitting the 9-hole, then you break up this parade of lefties. It doesn't take a whole lot, and you can even do so while keeping Arise in the 2-hole. Having those three lefties stacked one after another felt super avoidable today, and they went with it, and all three of those guys went over.
Yeah, a couple thoughts on that. One is obviously that situation is created because of the injury to Ramon Laureano. So you put Sheets in there and you go lefty, lefty, lefty. It's very rare, as you mentioned, especially when you get to the postseason when you want to go left, right as much as possible to protect yourself from the opposing team bringing in one-handed left or right reliever for advantageous matchups. And the other thing is it's not like Mike Schilt just sat down in the morning and said, hey, let's go. Oh, I like three lefties right here. Like they had multiple days off before the series. They have all the printouts on the Cubs and like what lineup
Laureano's going to be out.
Yeah. I mean, this was an organizational decision to put the three left-handed batters in a row. I mean, from AJ Preller all the way on down through all those guys in baseball ops that they always talk about, and then to Schilt. Like, so it wasn't a one-person decision, and it wasn't like, this is the best we can do with Laureano injured. No, this was the strategy that they came up with, which was very interesting and in many ways unprecedented. And so you mentioned a new bat. Could it be Camposano in the lineup in a playoff? Have I been drinking?
Like you might, maybe you've been drinking, but
maybe I've been drinking
at this point. Yeah, why not? More from the comments. JDS third. Manny has no clutch gene whatsoever. That might be a little bit harsh. Never shows up in the postseason, as postseason numbers aren't what they should be. Shohei hit a bomb his first at bat. Dodgers have 4 homers already in the 5th inning. That's real baseball.
Yeah. Shohei hit a homer in the first. Just watching it, and then his next at bat, runner in scoring position, he took a fastball right down the middle for strike 2 and strike 3. So things do happen.
Yeah. Where was that? There was a comment that I was looking for. Oh, I missed it.
Well, while you look for that comment, I mean, one thing is clear: whatever happens tomorrow, whatever, if they tinker with the lineup or whatever, if they mismatch the righties and lefties a little bit different, and no matter who the Cubs end up throwing the majority of their innings tomorrow, the Padres have to score runs. I mean, it's going back to that Dodger series. We all know what painful offensive experience ended that series. So if you add today and that last season, it's 1 run in the last 33 innings of postseason baseball for the Padres. No matter what they do, and no matter how many sacrifice bunts they do or not do, like you are not going to win games scoring 1 run in 9 innings, much less 33 innings. They need a big offensive day.
Saying Bogarts look good. Hope we win tomorrow. Bogarts did look good. Couple hits. Again, that RBI double, hitting the ball hard in the air, and that's continued what he's done, especially once he kind of turned it up midway or so through the season.
Yeah,
good sign. You just didn't expect 2 hits from Bogarts, 1 from Merrill, 1 for Fermin, and that's that.
Yeah, that at bat at the end of the game there, where they were arguing, Schilt came out to argue and like gave him that was weird. That was a weird at bat. I don't know if I've seen something quite like transpired there. That was funky.
Yeah. Smokey, I think Tatis did that, talking about his swingless at bat against Kittredge. He got 1 pitch. His previous 2 at bats, might be overthinking it. So maybe trying to be patient at the plate after being maybe too aggressive. And I think might be overthinking it. Probably feels like a good way to describe Fernando Tatis Jr. in the 2025 season as a whole, whether it's his what am I looking? What's the word I'm looking for? The leg kick,
batting stance.
What he's doing at the plate, tinkering with that a lot. Maybe just not kind of as mentally locked in as he needs to be, and just playing off instincts as well. I mean, I think such an instinctual baseball player, fantastic athlete, a guy that you just want him to clear his mind and just let that take over. And it doesn't feel like that was the case for the most part this season.
No, you've been there. I've been there many times post game in the locker room, and you go talk to Tatis, and he talks about how he's searching. He's just kind of searching this season, hasn't found his rhythm, and you mentioned trying different things with his swing. His swing every few weeks looks a little bit different, and that searching obviously continued today in a big way in the wild card.
Chip Rocks believes the game was lost on that bunt. He says it was lost the moment Merrill chose to bunt so that he can impress Daddy Schilt.
Daddy Shilty.
What really blows my mind is that the simple fact of scoring one lousy run, if not for that, we would be looking at 36 scoreless streak dating back to last year.
Yeah, and scoring runs in the postseason is hard. That has been proven historically, but you have to do better than one run. You're going to be going home in the postseason in back-to-back seasons, and this season is going to be real early unless you change that. And Darnay, a great example of that is the Cubs. I mean, they were really struggling against Pivetta in the first 4 innings, and they found something. They found two swings, 2 solid at bats, and then they scratched out a run against Estrada late. Like the Cubs did not have a great offensive day. I think they had 1 runner in scoring position or something? I'm not sure on that.
They 0 for 3 with 3 left on. Yeah.
Yeah. So like they scratched those 3 runs out. I mean, 2 good swings and then scratch 1 out and you get 3 on the board. So
yeah. On Pivetta, different pitch mix than usual. Heavy on the 4-seamer, mostly up in the zone. Did not deploy the curveball like he usually does. He spoke about that after the game, and sometimes when you've got a good feel for a pitch, it's working, you kind of stick with it, and that was obviously the case with the 4-seamer. And maybe it was Chicago the second time through the order or whatever it was, getting a feel for it, getting enough looks at it, and then obviously squaring it up. It felt a little bit like maybe he went that well a little bit too often. But again, usually less on the 4-seamer, more on the curveball, and just didn't mix it up the way that he normally did. You would sign up for the most part for 5 innings, 2 runs. It's not like Michael King last year where he had like a historically like one-off type of start against the Braves. That was sensational, but you can win a game, especially with your bullpen only allowing 2 runs with Nick Pivetta on the mound. But again, that is demanding something of your offense. So, a tough start just in the terms of the way things unfolded for Pivetta, because he was really, really good. I mean, he looked really, really good and in control. And then Chicago pounced.
Yeah, Pivetta handled himself well. Unfortunately, has been the trend with kind of Padre pitching, especially later in the season. The starters might pitch well for the most part, but there's been like 2 to 3 at bats a game where they give up a home run, and that accounts for the majority of the runs they relinquish. Maybe they give up 3 home runs in one inning, and they work 5 to 6 other solid innings. We've seen this movie before. So yes, Pivetta did handle himself well and pitch well, but giving up those home runs, I mean, that's a killer. That's why we're talking about the bunt and giving up at bats is so punitive, because one swing and that's a run for the other team, and you just are not seeing that on the flip side with the brown and gold of the Padres.
No, you're not. Season on the line, Dylan Cease on the mound.
The mustache, I like it. Maybe a little twirly or something on the end of the stash. Going back to Chicago. It's obviously a different team, different league, but back to Chicago and Padre Nation. I mean, we've ridden this Dylan Cease roller coaster, so if he's going to
all would be forgiven. All would be forgiven.
Yeah, a rocky start in May, June, August, every other start. I mean, you deliver in the wild card, and that would be great. So we'll see. If anybody tells you they know what they can expect from Cease tomorrow, they're lying, because I don't even think those guys in the Padre bullpen or Ruben Niebla has a good idea what he's going to get from Cease tomorrow.
He is coming off his best month, spoke this morning, feels good about how he's been throwing it, and obviously wants to carry that over. And he seems, like, I was curious what his tone would be like. He seems very comfortable and at ease,
Yeah.
just based on what he's had to say. Because you always worry about a guy like that who's had some struggles and just hasn't been able to kind of keep the train on the tracks. But I didn't hear him say anything or see anything that kind of set off some alarms. Like, I don't know if this guy's head is in the right place. Was asked about last year and his struggles, especially against LA. Was I think it was game 1, and they hurried him back and just did not pitch well, and said it took some time to get over that, and thought about it a lot through the off season. But obviously an opportunity to put that behind him and put what has been a disappointing season behind him. And again, you can change a lot of narratives with one really, really good start, which has evaded him or eluded him to this point in his Major League Baseball postseason career. But they need it. They need it desperately, and could use some length from him as well. Not just one earned over 4 innings, but a quality start. 1 earned, 2 earned over 6, like that. I feel like that's not being too greedy. That's certainly within Dylan Cease range. And they didn't pitch Robert Suarez. Mason Miller, I think, threw 13 pitches. Morahone didn't have to throw a ton of pitches. And so, those guys you figure would be available. Also, Michael King. And so that's another factor to consider if Dylan Cease does struggle, how quickly they're ready to run out there, get Shield out to the mound, and bring in King.
Yeah, having Michael King in your back pocket is obviously hugely advantageous, and maybe Cease responds, because the Padres could have gone with Darvish in game 2. They said, we want Dylan Cease on the mound in game 2. So sometimes, as a pro athlete, even though it sounds silly, you get a little boost, little jump in your step when your management and your manager and your front office and your organization say, hey, it's been rough this season, but we believe in you and we're giving you the ball for game 2. Go get them. And hopefully Dylan Cease can respond and validate that faith that they have in him, to be the second starter. But as you mentioned, their bullpen is not spent. They got King there. They got Vasquez. So they got some length if they need it. If he shows any signs of being shaky early, I'm sure Schilt will go to one of those guys to provide extended relief. And I have no doubt either of those guys could deliver.
In Cease we trust from Oz. So here we go. In Cease we trust. Got no choice.
Somehow I don't think that would be a very good selling T-shirt outside of Petco Park.
No, not right now. Chip Rock. So why isn't Vermeer hitting 8 in the 8 spot break up the lefty? Yeah, that's makes perfect sense to me. Do we expect it tomorrow? Absolutely not.
No. I wonder what the calculus is, as we talked about earlier. Like, this was a decision, the lefty. I almost said 4 lefties in a row there, but 3 lefties.
I wonder what towards the end of the season.
I just wonder what the calculus was, what their reasoning was for going 3 lefties in a row. Like, what they saw that made them say, hey, this is a good idea, and this is how we want to position our lineup. Because as we've talked about, I mean, whether you played little league or high school or minor league or pro baseball, the advantageousness of making your lineup lefty righty and having a balanced lineup. So
maybe it is. Just looking this up now, Ryan O'Hearn this year, 278 against lefties with an 832 OPS. So maybe it's just like, hey, we got a guy in there that has hit lefties well this season, and perhaps that was enough for them to say, okay, we're good. We feel comfortable with this. As it turns out, the Cubs bullpen pitched a perfect game. 14 straight retired to end the game. After that, Freddie Fermin base hit.
Including one former Padre, Drew Pomeranz.
Man.
Who acquitted himself pretty nicely this afternoon in his outing. Yeah, that Cub bullpen, obviously much less heralded than the Padres, but they look like the Padre bullpen. It looked like they almost switched roles today. They were great, and Padres didn't sniff anything against that Chicago bullpen.
No, let's see. Where is this here? Cubs ranked 7th in bullpen ERA after the trade deadline. Their pitching staff as a whole after the deadline, 2nd in walks, 3rd in stranding runners, 3rd in ERA, 2nd in batting average against, 1st in WHIP.
Yeah.
So, like, we know what the Padres are capable of and what they've done. Little less familiar with the Cubs, especially since they don't have like a name like a Mason Miller type, that
Yeah.
everybody's familiar with. But they've got guys that have been really, really effective, especially down the stretch.
Yeah, and the big one, this is where it's really going to hurt. We talked about the Boyd crying press conference the day before the emotional press conference, and we talked about maybe getting a crying Boyd meme, and he said, "Shove it, San Diego, you're not getting that from me."
No,
Sad.
they did not. Got a
Look,
nice
social media.
ovation coming off the mound there.
You're the king of social media, so if I didn't,
I
see
wouldn't
it,
have done. I didn't know. No.
you weren't seeing any. So yeah,
No, not the occasion today, for sure. All right. Well, got some business to handle. Hey, they did it in 2020 against Mike Schilt's Cardinals in an empty Petco
COVID.
Park full of the cardboard cutouts in the crowd. People out in the Lexus lot honking their horns and going nuts after every Tatis and Will Myers home run. So they've been there before. It is possible. Our guy Brooks here at the station was saying that stat, Stu, you shouldn't use that stat. There's not enough track record. Only 12 series, only 3 years. We should toss that out. I'm like, look, we're just giving you the facts here, okay? Not saying it's a guarantee, just presenting the facts.
Well, he is right. There's not a lot of historical data to back it up, but it's challenging. I mean, when you are on the road, or oftentimes whether you're on the road or playing another quality team that's obviously usually about the same strength as you or better than you over a course of a 162 game season, it's hard to win back-to-back games after dropping the first game. I mean, that's just Brooks can poo-poo that stat, but there's a reason. It is what it is. It is hard to win multiple games in a row against an opponent that is equal or better to you. That's just facts of life in baseball or anything you're doing. So I forgot about that Lexus lot in the COVID. Didn't they have a little parade or something through there in your car?
They had a big screen. No, I don't think so. I don't know if the parade, but they had all the cars set up. It was like a drive-in movie theater type of situation.
Right.
So and all the games other than what the Dodgers are doing played out in similar fashion. Tigers 2-1 over the Guardians, Red Sox 3-1 over the Yankees. We'll finish with this. A question from Smokey. Who steps up tomorrow if they win? Got any guess there, Todd?
I think Tatis is going to have a good game. I just think for me, Tatis is always a default guy. He can electrify the game, even if it's not hitting, he can get on base and change the complexion of the game. And I believe somewhere in there, even though he's been searching, I think there's some magic, and hopefully he gets a little magic tomorrow. And I think just what he does to the team is so impactful. If anybody's going to give this team some juice and some buzz and really some confidence, some flash, then I think it's got to come from Tatis.
I go to either Merrill or O'Hearn. Merrill answering the challenge after getting lit up for bunting, and O'Hearn a day where he could have very easily had 2 hits.
Yeah.
Gets rewarded and provides a needed spark. I want to say Machado. And I think it would be great for Manny Machado and the legacy of Manny Machado to step up and have a moment. Because I don't know off the top of our heads if we could name a moment, a Manny Machado moment. He did homer in that Game 2 win over the Cardinals in 2020.
Yeah.
But I think for a guy whose legacy, aside from that, pretty ironclad here in San Diego, just missing the type of moment, for a team that's been in the postseason regularly, that fans will be replaying on their phones for a long time.
What if the moment comes from Shilty? It's like 2-1 Padres in the 6th inning. They got runners on first and second, no outs, and rather than bunting them over, he lets them swing, and it's a 3-run tater. San Diego just rejoices. Put the Shilty mural up. No bunt. I love it. He might have a moment.
The camera catches Jake Cronenworth going to bunt, and they pan over to Mike Schill, and he's shaking his head and says,
Shaking him
"Swing
off.
away."
Yeah,
And he hits a 3-run homer to the Crone zone on the north side.
I like it. With his body armor. Inside joke there.
All the body armor.
All the armor.
All right, Todd, a pleasure. Thanks to everybody for getting in the chat. Made it a lot of fun. Always enjoy the feedback and you guys sparking the conversation as well. And we will be with you tomorrow at some point after game 2, hopefully with a game 3 on the horizon as well. We'll see you then.